In this video, I'm going to show you how to create an S3 bucket in AWS with Terraform. We'll start from zero and I'll explain what Terraform is in plain English. Then, we'll write the code and actually deploy the bucket. So, let's jump right in. Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Sergey, an AWS community builder. Not so long ago, a good friend of mine left a comment under one of my videos where I created an S3 bucket using AWS CLI. And this is what he said.
Please show how to do it with Terraform in your next video.
And today, we're going to take the super common task creating an S3 bucket and do it the right way with Terraform. And if you're new to Terraform, don't worry, I'll walk you through the basics. Alright, what is even Terraform? Terraform is a tool for infrastructure as code. Instead of clicking around in the AWS console, you describe what you want in text files, and Terraform takes that description and goes like, okay, I'll create this for you. The important idea is, it's declarative. You don't write a script that says, first do this, then do that. You just say, I want an S3 bucket in this region with these settings, and Terraform figures out the steps to get from nothing to that bucket. Because it's just code, you can throw it into Git, review it in pull requests, roll back changes, reuse it in other accounts. All the nice stuff, all the nice things that we already do with application code. There are three words you'll hear all the time with Terraform. So let's demystify them quickly. Providers. These are plugins that know how to talk to a platform. We'll use the AWS provider so Terraform can create stuff like S3 buckets, EC2 instances, IAM role, and all that stuff. Resources. Think of these as individual pieces of infrastructure. An S3 bucket is a resource. An EC2 instance is a resource. In this video, our main one will be AWS S3 bucket. State. This is Terraform's memory. After it creates something, it stores info in a terraform.tf state file, so it knows, okay, this bucket already exists, don't recreate it, maybe just change this detail. In this demo, the state file will live locally next to our code. In a real-world setup, you'd usually put it in S3 or Terraform Cloud so your whole team can share it. Alright, let's build this out. I'm in an empty folder on my machine. Use whatever editor you like, I'm using VS Code. First, make sure that Terraform is installed. In your terminal, run the following command, terraform version. If you see a version printed out, then you're good. You'll also need AWS credentials set up like CLI profile, environment variables, SSO, whatever you normally use. In my case, I've got environment variables configured, so Terraform will reuse them. Now let's create our main Terraform file. I'll call it main.tf. We'll start with the Terraform block and declare the AWS provider. Well, I could type it from memory, but it's better to follow the official docs, so let's pull those up. Here's the Terraform documentation for the AWS provider. So scroll down to the example Terraform block, copy it, and paste it into your editor. This block basically says, use the AWS provider and require version 6.0 or newer. We can also pin the Terraform CLI version. So I'll add required -version. I'm on Terraform 1.14.2, so I'll set that here. Great, Terraform block is done. Next, let's configure the AWS provider. Add a provider block, set provider AWS, and specify the region. In my case, I'm using EU Central -1. If you're using a different region, just change the string. And if you're using environment variables instead of a profile, you can also skip the profile line and leave it as it is. Alright, now the star of the show, the S3 bucket. So quick reminder, S3 bucket names have to be globally unique. So if you copy my exact name, it probably won't work. So we use something that is clearly yours. Instead of guessing the resource name, let's go back to the docs and search for AWS S3. Oh, yeah. Here's the S3 bucket resource. Scroll down, copy the example resource block, and paste it into our main.tf. Alright. Now I'll change the bucket name. Well, I'll use something like my-cool-DevOps bucket 7979. Well, and for tags, I'll leave the defaults for now. So the bucket attribute is the real name that shows up in AWS. And the resource name, like this example, I'll change it to the main. It's just a local name inside Terraform. You'll use that local name to reference the bucket from other resources. Pause here if you need and update the bucket name to something unique, especially to you. Next, let's add something you'd almost always want in real life. And here I'm talking about versioning. Back into the docs, scroll until you find AWS bucket versioning. Copy that block and paste it into the main file. Give it a local name and then reference the real bucket using AWS S3 bucket main ID. That's the bucket ID Terraform uses under the hood. Now let's change it to main. Alright, let's go ahead and save the file, and now let's recap what we have just built. We've set up the Terraform block with required versions. Then we configured the AWS provider and region. Then we created an S3 bucket with tags and added versioning on top of it. Terraform will create the bucket first, then apply the versioning configuration. Great, config's ready. In any new Terraform project, the first command is Terraform init. So let's run that. Terraform init downloads the AWS provider plugin and sets up the .terraform directory. You typically run it just once and rerun it only if you add or change providers. Once it finishes, you'll see which provider version it installed. Mine pulled down version 6.26.0. Next up is Terraform plan. Think of it as a dry run. Terraform compares your configuration with the current state and tells you what it would do without changing anything in AWS yet. Before we run the plan, let's do 2 quick checks. First, Terraform FMT to format the files consistently. Then, Terraform validate to catch syntax issues and basic configuration mistakes. Now run Terraform plan. You should see a plan that says it will create an S3 bucket, along with the bucket name, the region, and tags, and it will also create the versioning configuration. In a real team, this is what you'd review in a pull request before applying changes. And if everything looks good, the next step is Terraform apply. Terraform will show you the plan again and ask you to confirm by typing yes. Once you do it, it will create the resources in AWS. After a few seconds, you should see a summary like this one to added, 0 changed, 0 destroyed. At that point, your bucket should exist. Now let's hop over to the AWS console and verify. And there it is. Our S3 bucket is up and running. Click on it and check the properties. So scroll down, versioning should be enabled. Here it is. And under tags, here they are. You should see the values we set like environment and stuff like that. Alright, since this is just a demo, let me also show you how to clean everything up. Back in the terminal to destroy everything from this config. Okay, go ahead and run Terraform destroy. Terraform will show you a deletion plan. Review it and type yes to confirm. Heads up, if you uploaded files into the bucket, you may need to empty it first, depending on your settings. But for a fresh empty bucket like this one, it usually deletes pretty cleanly. And that's it. We created an S3 bucket with versioning, verified it in the console, and then destroyed it. Alright, let's wrap it up. In this video, we talked about what Terraform is, a declarative infrastructure as code tool, explained providers, resources, and state in simple terms, wrote a small Terraform config using the AWS provider and the AWS S3 bucket resource, ran Terraform init, plan, and apply to create a real S3 in AWS, checked it in the console, and then destroyed it with Terraform destroy. The cool part is, the same workflow scales up. Today it's just an S3 bucket, tomorrow it can be VPCs, EC2, RDS, EKS, whatever you need. Still just code. If this was helpful, do me a favor, click like and hit subscribe if you want more AWS and DevOps content, and drop a comment if you want to see a follow-up, maybe EC2 with Terraform or full static site with S3 and CloudFront. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.